Alright, so here to talk about some tomatoes, right? This exercise has to do with subordinators and connection. Here we have letter A, although appearing less appetizing. This one is not a subordinated clause. This one is just a modifier. Why? Because we have although, a subordinator, but we don't have a clause. We don't have a subject and a verb. We have the participle appearing, which is basically an adjective. Alright, so it's modifying Heirloom tomatoes. Alright, Heirloom tomatoes seems to be the noun, the subject. Grown from seeds is another modifier. It's describing the tomatoes. That's fine. So all of this thing is just blah blah blah, unessential. And then what happens? Then they give you a clause, right? A clause that is between dashes. They are often green and striped, blah blah blah. So that clause between dashes, those dashes are trying to isolate that clause and tell you that it's a non-essential clause. So we'll remove that whole clause because it's non-essential, and we have another clause to the right. We have Heirloom tomatoes are more flavorful. Okay, so we have a clause, a main clause to the right of the dashes. So here we need another something that could connect to this main clause. In letter A, we just have Heirloom tomatoes. That's the only part. We don't have a verb for Heirloom tomatoes. It makes no sense. So letter A is out. Letter B seems to be fine. Why? Because we have although, subordinator, Heirloom tomatoes, subject, grown from blah blah blah. That's a modifier, non-essential modifier. Heirloom tomatoes appear less appetizing. So that's a clause. We have a subordinated clause. And to the right we have a main clause, so that makes sense because this subordinator is the one that is connecting those two clauses. Although connects the two clauses, so letter B seems fine. Letter C, although they appear less appetizing, alright, we don't know what they is. Heirloom tomatoes, alright, so we already know what they is. They refers to Heirloom tomatoes. This although they appear less appetizing is a subordinated clause. We have a comma, so Heirloom tomatoes seems to be the subject for the main clause. And then we have a grown from seed. That whole thing is a modifier, and we don't have a verb, so it's incomplete. We cannot connect it to the other clause. Heirlooms are flavorful, so letter C is out. Letter D, grown from seed, saved, blah 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 blah. So that whole thing is a modifier, an adjective, a noun modifier. It modifies Heirloom tomatoes, appears. So here we have a clause. Okay, but the thing is that we have two main clauses. We have Heirloom tomatoes appear. It's not like letter B that we had a subordinator, right? Now, for this we need some sort of a basic theory. Let's remember some basic connection theory. In order to connect two clauses, we have some options. We can use a coordinator, like the fanboys, right? For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Or we can use some subordinators, right? So, like although, for example, those are the ones that connect clauses. Okay, so in this case, letter D has two main clauses but no connection. So it's also out. And also in meaning, it's missing a contrast because the original meaning has a contrast. It needs a contrast. Although something happens, they are flavorful. Although they look ugly, they are flavorful. That's what the story is trying to tell you. So letter B is better than letter D. Letter E, Heirloom tomatoes, and then we have a modifier, blah 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 blah. Although they appear, so they put the connection here. Although between they appear and Heirloom tomatoes, they are not connecting. They are not doing a good connection because we are not connecting clauses here. On the right we have a clause, on the left we have only a noun. So a subordinator cannot connect a noun to a clause. That makes no sense. So the letter E is out and our answer is B.